Hey guys, it's Vornskyr here, and today we're back in Elite Dangerous, and I'm going to talk about why I'm not really playing Powerplay. Now, before we get into this, I just want to do a couple of disclaimer sort of things. First off, I'm fully aware that there are a large number of people who are enjoying Powerplay, and that's perfectly fine. This is just my opinion, like the reasons that I'm not playing this. So if you enjoy Powerplay, don't take this as me having a go at you for liking that or anything like that, because that's certainly not what this is. So yeah, got that out of the way real quick. But yeah, so we'll just kind of go through this. So I just kind of wrote down a few notes before I got started. I'm going to approach this from a couple of different angles. The first being a kind of story, sort of lore based thing, and the second being gameplay. I think for me there's a lot more negatives in the gameplay sort of thing. But anyway, let's kind of get into it. So the first thing that I kind of noticed with Powerplay is that there's no reason to actually back any of the powers from a story point of view. I mean, a lot of the people, we don't even know who they are. Even if you follow the Galnet news pretty closely, and I kind of stopped doing that if I'm honest, but even if you follow that pretty closely, there's not that much real information about some of these Powerplay leaders. Some of them we've heard of, obviously, Torvald, Petraeus, I mean a lot of the Empire ones in particular, because a lot of the Galnet news focuses on the Empire, and a couple of the Federation ones, but there's not a lot of background to these guys. From a story point of view, I don't really care about any of them at all. Like, it's more just, you know, what bonuses do they have in terms of the gameplay aspect. So, I know some people like the, which one doesn't like slavery? Is that Orisa, the space princess? I'm not really sure. Anyway, some people are backing her for that kind of roleplay point of view, because she doesn't like slavery, or whatever, but for me, there's really very little backstory behind any of these powers. So that's one sort of negative for me. It's not a massive thing, it's just, kind of adds on to everything else, I guess. The other thing that I don't really like from a story point of view is that it doesn't make sense how the powers are kind of in full-scale conflict against each other. Like, you think of it from the Empire point of view, the way that these powers are fighting, you would think that the Empire would be in a full-blown civil war. Like, it doesn't really make sense. I guess that kind of comes down to the fact that like they can do this whole sort of combat thing, like with the powers being hostile to each other, because it's kind of a separate game almost. I don't really know, but from a story point of view, the way that these guys are going full out, you know, massive war zones and everything, it doesn't really make sense. You would think, given that it's happening all across the inhabited galaxy, basically, you would think that the knock-on effect from that would be some sort of massive war, and it just doesn't seem to really be happening. So that's a couple of things I don't really like from a story point of view. Like I said, the story stuff, it's not really that important in this game, because Elite Dangerous doesn't really have much of a story anyway. So, I mean, if this was a game with a really complex narrative sort of thing, and then you just had this shoehorned in, it would be a lot more damaging, I think. But like I said, because this game doesn't have much of a story anyway, it's not that big a deal. It's just a couple of sort of nagging little things that have annoyed me, I guess. But so let's kind of move on to gameplay stuff, and hopefully this will make sense. I don't know that it will, but I've just kind of noted down a whole bunch of things here, not in any real order. So let's just start from the top, I guess. So the first thing I don't really like is that it feels completely disconnected from Elite Dangerous. Like, the whole game that we've gotten used to for the last... How long has it been out of beta for? Like, the last 6, 7, 8 months, something like that? This feels totally different. It's like a lot of people describe it as being basically Risk, the kind of strategic board game overlaid on top of the rest of the game. But the problem is it just feels completely disconnected from the rest of the game. So you kind of get a really jarring feeling, or at least I do, when you go back and forth between Powerplay and then the normal game. It's kind of like you're doing two completely different things, even though it's using a lot of the same game mechanics. So for me, I don't really like the feel of it, I guess. So yeah, that kind of leads on to some of the other things, which is that it doesn't really feel integrated with the main factions or the bulletin board. I mean, the way that I'd first conceived of Powerplay when we first heard of it was that it would be kind of integrated with the main factions, so the Alliance, the Empire, the Federation, and it would be kind of built into the bulletin boards. What it is instead is that it's kind of a third layer. So, you know, you've got your minor factions, which are like, you know, the 5 or 6 factions that are inside a system, and every system has those factions, or every inhabited one. And then you've got your major factions being as I said, the Empire, the Federation, and the Alliance. Powerplay kind of slots in between those, but the problem is it also feels kind of separate from them. So what you're doing in Powerplay doesn't really seem to affect the major powers or anything like that. I kind of wish that it would, but I don't know. So that's one thing. Again, like I said, it's not really integrated with bulletin board missions or anything like that. It's kind of its own separate thing. I mean, I was really hoping that one thing you might find a bulletin board mission in a control system to go and, I don't know, do something with something else, with one of the other systems. And it just hasn't really worked out that way. And yeah, it just, I don't know, I don't really like that, I guess. So I also kind of feel that it's exceedingly grindy. I mean, Elite Dangerous is a pretty grindy game. There's no doubt about that, I don't think. The whole progression in the game is kind of presented to the player as being earning credits to buy ships and upgrade ships, and then with that upgraded ship you earn more credits, and the cycle continues. I mean, I know some people will disagree with that, but that's how the game feels to a lot of people, and it is kind of how the game is presented to people. Like, just, you know, the whole progression mechanics are basically improve your ship and get a new ship, basically. So as I said, Elite is already pretty grindy, but Powerplay, it feels a lot more grindy. It feels like in an MMO, you've got your end game raiding content, and a lot of times that is very grindy. The idea being the player keeps grinding out the new stuff and they keep playing the game. And of course, with old school MMOs, they would pay the subscription. So they keep playing the game, they keep paying the subscription. And that's why the whole grindy sort of thing was involved. I mean, Elite obviously doesn't really need that, but I think they've done this as just some sort of endgame thing to keep the late game players playing. Like the guys who have their 500 million credits and they've got a fully kitted Anaconda, it kind of feels like the high-end Powerplay stuff is designed just to keep them playing the game. The problem with that is that you have to spend a lot of hours to progress in Powerplay, but you don't really get that much for staying in Powerplay. I mean, obviously, once you have been in there for a while and you get the highest rank stuff, you can get that 50 million credits per week bonus and all that sort of thing. But apart from that, and apart from the special items that you get for sticking with a power for a month, and I don't even know if we know how good these items are going to be yet. They may have been stats put out for them, but I'm really not sure. But apart from that, you don't really get anything for doing Powerplay. I mean, I suppose if you really get into it, then expanding the influence of your chosen power could be a good enough incentive, because obviously that gets you a few bonuses as well in terms of like the control systems giving you certain bonuses for whatever your power has. But I don't know, for me, I don't really see any benefit for participating in Powerplay. But I don't know, maybe that's just me, I'm not really sure. So one other thing that I kind of feel is that, kind of growing on from that lack of benefits, is that Powerplay doesn't really seem to have brought anything new to the table for Elite Dangerous. Like I said, it doesn't do much of story content, and it hasn't really added anything in terms of gameplay mechanics. I mean, obviously the control systems and the exploited systems offering bonuses for the factions, that's something new, and it's something you can take advantage of whether you use Powerplay or not. So that's pretty cool. But in terms of anything else, I mean, you're basically doing the same stuff you were doing before. It's just got a slightly different skin on top of it. So, you know, you're still doing combat zones, except they're called something else, and you're getting merits from it instead of credits. You're still doing delivery missions, but if I can speak, you're delivering certain items instead of trade goods, and you're getting merits again. It's basically all the same stuff, it's just in a slightly different setting. I mean, I was kind of hoping for something new from Powerplay. I'm not really sure what that would have been, but I guess part of that, like part of my expectations are probably because the update was hyped so much. Like, there was a lot of hype for the update, and there was also, they hyped it a lot without saying very much. And looking back on that hype, and I kind of bought into the hype pretty badly, which is my own fault, I can admit that. But it was easy to kind of build your own expectations from what they were saying, and what we got wasn't really that, I guess. So yeah, one of the things that I kind of feel about it is that if you want to move around the galaxy, if you want to move from Empire space to Alliance space to Federation space and just kind of jump around the inhabited sections of the galaxy, you're better off not being in a power. I think being in a power is good if you've got one section of space where you just want to stay there and kind of roam around that space and grow the power's influence in that space. But if you want to keep jumping backwards and forwards between different areas where there's obviously different powers have dominance in different areas of space, you're probably better off not being part of a power, just for ease of living and that sort of thing, because you're going to find yourself being interdicted all the time, basically. I know when I was in a couple of different powers, I was being interdicted fairly frequently, and not by players, just by NPCs. And it's not that interdictions are difficult to break out of or anything like that. Oftentimes it would just be a really easy ship to destroy. I'd submit to the interdiction, destroy the ship and be on my way. But it's just annoying. I've never particularly enjoyed the interdiction side of the game, and I was kind of glad when they reduced interdictions a while back. And having them added back in, I just find that to be more of an annoyance than anything else. So yeah, I think in some ways, if you're, like I said, if you're actually bouncing around between different places in the galaxy, I think you're probably better off not being part of a power. And that brings me on to another thing, which is something I do like about it, and that's that you can take advantage of all the different power play bonuses, like the bonuses to selling items in one system or the bonuses smuggling in another control system. You can take advantage of that without being part of a power, and I think that is a good thing. That's one of the things that I do really like about the Power Play update. At the same time, it doesn't necessarily make sense. I mean, you'd think that these powers would only want to be offering those bonuses to people who had supported them, but whatever, let's not look a gift horse in the mouth, in the mouth, as the saying goes. So yeah, that's kind of the negatives about it, and one positive, I guess. But that's kind of the negative things about the Power Play system. I think a lot of that draws from the fact that it was just released too soon. A lot of us who played in the beta were saying, it needs to be in beta for longer. There's a lot of stuff about the system that needs to be worked on and sorted out. I think Power Play was only in a public beta for about, was it a week and a half? I don't think that was enough time. So I guess the thing about this is that there is a lot of room for improvement. And it's kind of like what I said about the community goals. When the community goals were first released, my feeling was that it was just absolutely not worth doing them. I didn't really like them at all. There was no point to it compared to how much work you put into it. Like, there was no real benefit from it. But over time, Frontier really did listen to people saying that, and they have significantly improved the community goals to the point where it's something that is really worth doing. So I think the same thing will probably happen with Power Play. I think it will continue to grow and evolve, and I think it will probably get better as long as it gets that kind of Frontier development update love or whatever. Obviously, they're not going to completely revamp the mechanics of Power Play. I don't think they're going to completely take it back to the drawing board and start again from scratch. That doesn't really make sense, especially now that it's actually gone live and it's something that people are playing with. So I don't see that happening, but I think it will probably update and get better over time. That's certainly my hope. So maybe in a couple of months I'll find myself being really stuck into Power Play, but at the moment it's just not really something that I have much interest in, I guess. Obviously lots of people feel differently, and that's fine. If you're enjoying Power Play, then good for you, and that's not sarcasm. I truly do believe that. If you can find something that you enjoy like that, then that's really good. But for me, it's not really there. But hopefully one day it will be. But yeah, so I think that's all I really wanted to say about Power Play at this point. I mean, it's been a couple of weeks now since Power Play has come out. I think it's actually 3 weeks now. A lot of this stuff has been said before by a lot of people, but I kind of wanted to let the dust settle a bit and kind of gather my thoughts before I came out and did this. So a lot of this might have been said by other people already, but whatever. I hope it's made sense anyway. It's just kind of my opinion about things. I do know I kind of lose track of my point sometimes when I'm rambling on like this, but anyway. I think I'll end this one here because I'm not really saying much of value anymore, if I ever was. So anyway, until next time, I've been Vornskyr. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.